Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Welcome to this episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. This week I'm joined by Chana Studley, who is, formerly used to work in Hollywood, doing various bits and pieces. I'll let her expand on that. She'll be able to explain it better than I can. She's the author of 2 books, The Myth of Low Self-Esteem and Painless, both wonderful books. I've really enjoyed both of them, and currently living in Jerusalem. Now, there's probably some bits and pieces I've missed in there, Hannah, but so if there's anything you'd like to add, please do so.
Thank you, David. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I remember when we first met at the conference a few years ago now, and it's been wonderful to watch the work that you do. So it's such a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I used to do special effects in Hollywood, specifically animatronics, which are kind of computerized puppets. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It certainly looks like it from the things that I've seen that you've been involved in. As I say, it's lovely to see you. As you know, the idea behind this is a conversation amongst friends, just looking at small, simple things that have shifted us in a big way. And I know you've been reviewing a book recently, and that something has sort of jumped out at you from that. So I just wondered if you'd like to explain a little bit more about what you've seen.
Yeah, there's a new book came out a little while ago by Sheila Masand. It's a wonderful collection of stories with many of the 3 principles teachers that Sydney Banks mentored for many years. And there, in the chapter by Dickon Bettinger, I was reviewing the manuscript, and this really amazing thing jumped out at me. He was talking about how we don't need fixing, and we're never broken. And I've been saying that to clients and friends and podcasts and whoever will listen to me. We're always filling our thinking, and we can never be broken. And, and I know several 3 principles teachers who have been teaching that. And I've also noticed it in like psychology books that have been around, much, much longer than we have. And I've repeated it with absolute confidence because it made absolute sense to me. And then as I was reading Dickens' words, he was talking about how Sid points to the form and formless, meaning there's this formless energy that comes before we have thoughts and thinking. And then it moves through our minds, and then it goes through and becomes formless again. So I suddenly saw that if my essence is that formless nature before it becomes turns into the form of a thought or an image or music or something in my mind, it's formless, and formless can't be broken. And it sounds so simple when I say it now, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I can say it with absolute confidence now, because you can't break formlessness. You could call it spiritual, you could call it essence, wisdom, whatever you want to call that. Beautiful wisdom that is running the show, that is already guiding us, that we might not even know or acknowledge. But that's the essence of who we really are. And because it has no form, it can't be broken. And it's not until it takes a form of a thought or an image or an idea, a belief system, which is what I now see as illusions, that's when I think I can be broken. When I've fallen for the illusion of the thinking, when I think I'm, less than, or comparing myself with other people, that illusion is what gets damaged and broken and misshapen, and then we believe that, and then we get sick, we get depressed, we get all kinds of reactions to that. So it was just a wonderful moment of like, oh wow. It's so simple, and yet it's so cool.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. I think what springs to mind for me there is it's the thought itself that can be, that can break apart and feel fragile. And that the feeling of fragility is almost the reminder that it's that thought that's going to break rather than anything else. And, if we really sort of gently unpack that has been true of our lives to date. There have been things that have felt very true to a point in time that all of a sudden feel very fragile as we're learning something new about it, and it expands and becomes slightly different, and then it feels solid again, and until we're ready to learn and see something fresher, and it gets fragile, it breaks, and out comes something else, because that as you said, the formlessness of it is what's emerging at every opportunity.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of comforting to see that, and it kind of takes the pressure off, needing to be a certain way or believe a certain belief system, because like you said, it's always morphing and changing and flowing, and that's what it means to be a human being. In fact, as you said that, people often ask me, how did I go from working in Hollywood to coaching people? It seems like a huge jump, but really, doing special effects for movies, it's what our minds do all the time. My mind has a much better special effects department than anything me or Steven Spielberg could have come up with, because my whole career in Hollywood was about convincing you that things were real that weren't, like animals can talk, or people can fly, or that kind of stuff. And for that hour and 20 minutes or however long the movie is you're watching it, we suspend our disbelief and believe that, Daniel Radcliffe can fly. Well, he can't. Harry Potter can. Daniel can't. Dogs don't talk. It's like gorillas can't play poker, but we see them in movies doing these things. And so we suspend our disbelief, and that's kind of what happens with thought and thinking, is that I can get this like a crazy thought or an inappropriate thought or an illegal thought. And then depending on how I'm feeling, like what mood I'm in, I might believe that thought to be true. And then I could make decisions on that, belief and get myself into a lot of trouble, whether it's illegal trouble or depressive, dark trouble. And believing it's true, and such freedom to know that every crazy thought I've ever had, every sad thought, every broken heart, even joyful stuff has moved on. And it doesn't say anything about who I am. It produces a lot of freedom, takes off a lot of that pressure that I used to think was real and was life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost there's the sum of our past in all its little fragments isn't who we are today. It's just that they're just points in time of how we were feeling, how we were seeing things then. They have no real bearing on our lives right now unless we allow them to. And there's as you say, there's a load of freedom that comes from that, but also it requires a little bit of faith and understanding that is how it works, and that I'm not the sum of all of those parts, and that some of those bits feel massive and weighty and like they're gonna be shadowing over my life forever. If I believe that, then that's what I'll experience. If I can see that might not be true, then we've got a possibility of stepping on more lightly with the rest of the journey of life, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah. So people sometimes say to me, "Oh, I couldn't do what you do, like speak or do podcasts, whatever." I said, "Well, not," because I'm really shy, and I said, "How do you know I'm not?" Maybe I'm shy too, but I've learned not to listen to that kind of thinking, because it doesn't help and doesn't get me anywhere. So yeah, it's such a freedom to understand that, not be in a prison with it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I volunteer into the Heartfelt Presence thing a couple of times a week, and there was a lady in there today who was completely stuck on the fact that all her plumbing needs to change, and that she can't get out of bed. And I said, okay, well, maybe you do need to change all the plumbing in your house. That might be a fact, and it might be too expensive for you, which is another fact. Or you might be you can afford it, and you think it's too expensive for what it is, which is a fact. And they're all very, you can handle all of that. But the thing that you're struggling with right now is the thought of all of those things, which you're finding is paralyzing and meaning you're stuck in bed. I said, well, that in itself is just a thought, because I reckon you probably could get out of bed if you really wanted to. You don't need to find any motivation. You don't need to find anything different to be able to do that. The fact that you now know your plumbing is shot doesn't mean to say that it wasn't 2 days ago before you found out. The plumbing hasn't changed. It's just your understanding of that and your relationship with the thinking around that. And she went, oh my, so it is. I said, now you're probably still feeling like you're stuck in bed, but actually you've got a potential to just get up and do it anyway. She went, yeah, that's probably true. I said, what have you got to lose in trying? And what felt hugely heavy for her just shifted a little bit. Now the facts haven't changed. Her plumbing still does need to be changed, and it probably is going to cost more than she can afford. But her ability to get up and get on with life hasn't changed at all.
Yeah. Yeah, because I used to think that the world, my circumstances, my mother, boyfriends, football, whatever it was, had to change, and then I'd feel better, then I'd be okay. And to see that that's not what's creating my experience has been, I think that's been one of the biggest insights for me that has changed, because I used to think I had to change all those things because then I'd be okay. Like my happiness was coming from those things working out or going the way I wanted them to, or people behaving the way I needed them to. And it was their fault that I didn't feel good. And it was their fault that my life was a disaster or whatever. I don't know, crazy thought I was having. And to let other people off the hook for how I feel, or my circumstances not be the reason I feel something, is, it's been amazing to understand that. And you just reminded me of a call I got from a client, actually it was a year ago now, because I remember she was a school teacher, and she had, for the 2 years of COVID, she'd been teaching online, and she'd been teaching for 30-something years, and she loved her job. And so now the schools were opening up, she needed to go back into the classroom. And she called me in an absolute panic saying, if I go into the classroom, I'm going to get corona and I'm going to die. And if I tell them I'm not willing to go into the classroom, they're going to fire me. And as a 50-year-old woman, who's never done anything else, I'm never going to get another job, and I'm going to lose my house, and I'm going to die on the streets. And she'd thought herself into only these two options, either die in the classroom or die on the streets. And I've learned that to say to someone, it's just your thinking, is not kind, and it's not helpful when someone's in, that kind of low place. But like you did, I was like, I thought I should guide her, come in the side door, as it were, to kind of hint at these ideas. And so at first I said to her, gosh, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. She goes, yes. So I said, well, why not take the one with salary and benefits? If you're going to die in either situation, you might as well take the one that's got, some money attached to it. I wasn't trying to give her advice, but it lightened her up just a little bit. I wouldn't say she laughed, but it just shifted things just a tiny bit, that her perspective changed, and it kind of enabled the conversation to open up. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about how, she started to see that she'd thought herself into a corner, and there were other options, like maybe she become a tutor or a consultant, or those weren't the only two options available to her. And then she did actually go back into the classroom, and it was quite interesting. She had a teacher's aide, and she noticed that she would have a panic attack at 2:00 every afternoon the first week. And we worked out is because she would manage to get through the morning, and then during lunchtime, she would frighten herself thinking the kids are all running around and touching each other and touching everything, and now I'm going to get sick now. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? You have a panic attack at 2:00 every afternoon, and her teacher's aide would have to take over. She's like, yeah, that's weird. And when she saw why that she was frightening herself with her own thinking, it faded away. And now, as far as I know, she carried on teaching and is back to, enjoying her career. And I'm sure she's a wonderful teacher. But It's just interesting. And sometimes it's easier to see in other people how, we can think ourselves into a mess. But I know that I used to do it badly. And now I can catch myself. I can almost smell it coming. If I'm going to, trip myself up with some stinky thinking, it's like, oh, I don't want to go there.
Yeah, it comes with a sort of a set of feelings that just, this is an exception, this is different. Yeah. And in itself, that's an invitation. Oh, okay, what am I getting stuck on here? What am I not seeing? And that, just asking that creates a bit of curiosity and a bit of openness to see what else is out there and what else we can lean into.
Yeah, because I had that recently. Actually, I was, I get up early in the morning and I'd start checking my emails, and I start seeing what messages I need to return and all that kind of stuff. And I've been looking at a lot of technology recently to maybe do a course and do different things with my business. And I started feeling a little overwhelmed, and I know it because my thinking speeds up. It feels heavy. It feels intense. There's like a sense of urgency starts happening. And then I heard this thought, which was, I can't do this, just give up, And I heard myself, and I have a window outside of my desk, and I looked at the window, and it was about 6 a.m. The sun had come up, and it was a beautiful blue sky. I'm in Jerusalem, but it's cold now, but we still have these beautiful blue skies. And I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, it's so clear to me in that second. I was feeling my thinking, not my circumstances. My circumstances hadn't changed, like you were saying earlier, from 10 minutes ago, and just some busy thinking started happening, and it was almost funny to me. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous, and I wrote about it. And by the time I'd even wrote a post about how it can happen to any of us, the heaviness had left. I felt light again. I was able to enjoy the beautiful blue sky and the day ahead of me, and it's gone away. And it's since then I've, with some clear thinking, been able to work something out, ask some people for advice, worked out how to do these things, and now I'm excited about it. Whereas had I listened to that thinking, I might be out the coaching business by now, giving it all up and saying, like called you and cancelled everything. And it's such a relief not to have to listen to that, and just knowing that the heaviness, the intensity, the urgency, those are all clues now that thinking probably has no good information in it. It usually doesn't end well, and I don't want to go there anymore.
Yeah, that's cool. Another one that sort of falls into that trap is isolation and loneliness. That in itself is an invitation to realize that that's not true. Actually, we just need to go and knock on a few doors, make a few phone calls, and given that scenario you just dreamt up there's bound to be someone that you or I know that would be able to help with that and go, oh no, actually this is what you might need to help with that particular technical problem, which is, again, here's a fact-based problem and here's a fact-based solution. The discomfort you felt was all based on the thinking that you were having in the moment, which is always the case.
It's funny, it just reminded me, like isolation and loneliness were, when I was, I had some serious PTSD for a while, and that's really one of the symptoms of that. And I remember having this bright idea one time that I thought I should write a list of all my friends. Then next time I get into a low mood about, like feeling lonely or isolated, I could look at this list of friends, and then I'd remind myself that it's not true. Sounds good, right? So, because this is back in the days when I was coaching with lots of techniques and methods and, toolkit of things to help my clients with. And I thought it was such a brilliant idea. So, along comes another low mood. And I remember, first time I did not remember to get the piece of paper out, which didn't work. Then the low mood came back. And so I thought, oh yeah, I'll get that piece of paper out, let's say. So I got the piece of paper with the list of all the names on, and I looked at the list of names and I thought, well, I never liked him. She never calls me back. He's an idiot. Back to my low mood, because, it's like, and that's why I started seeing that techniques, like they're great when you're in a good mood. It seemed like it made perfect sense when I was in a good mood, and that, thinking of all your wonderful friends and family and, people who support you. But in a low mood, I hate everybody. I don't want to talk to them anyway. I'm better off on my own. And like I said, like just hearing those familiar thoughts and feelings are a great message, like to know that they are almost like a big they're almost like a big stop sign saying don't go any further, danger, it's not worth it. So that one didn't work. But
I'm going to ask a question now. Have you got any particular projects on the go at the moment that you're excited about, that you're interested in, that you think people will be interested in hearing, or are they still at the sort of secret stage where you're keeping them close to your chest?
Oh, so I have some secret ones. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But I do have another book that's coming out. God willing, it will come out in January time, the new year. This one really is, I mean, men are welcome to read it, but it's really for women. It's all about hormones. I mean, I know men have hormones too, but it's really about PMS, postpartum depression, and menopause. And what I found some really cool research that showed that a lot of the women who suffer in those areas, I won't say 100%, but a great deal of those women have a history of trauma or some maybe abuse, or at least some kind of prolonged stressful thinking. And because of that history of prolonged stressful thinking, nervous systems have been, say, hyperactive and like hypersensitized. And so when maybe a drop in hormones comes, like after the birth of a baby or menopause, it's like another trauma to have to deal with. And then the body reacts because the body thinks we're in danger, when it's actually a quite natural and normal thing if you know what's happening to you. And I found a lot of science to back that up. And when I was doing the research for this, I joined a Facebook group for women who suffer these different kinds of situations. And I noticed that they were all talking about symptoms where generally could be classified as brain fog, fatigue, stomach problems, migraines. And I thought, oh, that sounds familiar. Because when I was doing my chronic pain research, no matter whether somebody had back pain or migraines or like foot pain, they also often had brain fog, fatigue, stomach problems, migraines. These same symptoms were showing up. And then I recently got involved in helping people with long COVID. And when I joined a long COVID group, guess what? The symptoms were brain fog, fatigue, stomach problems, headaches and migraines. And it's also true in the histamine groups. A lot of people have food allergies these days. And some people get into such a state that their diets are really, really restricted because they're thinking, every time I eat, not just peanuts or strawberries, but, anything, their food, some people are down to just a few basic things that they can eat. And guess what? In those Facebook groups, they're talking about brain fog and fatigue and migraines and stomach problems. And I thought, isn't that curious that no matter what the different symptoms are, you could trace it back to some, the same cause, which is prolonged stressful thinking. And so this next book is about hormones, but I've also got ideas for other books where people are suffering innocently, with these appearingly different kinds of symptoms, like comparing, food allergies to PTSD to hormones to ADHD to, the list is endless. But when we go back to the root cause and see that it's prolonged stressful thinking, like Sydney Banks, who, put the 3 principles ideas together, he talks about one generic mental illness and seeing how if there's just got one cause, then understanding that is really the solution. So my books are novels, they're stories, because I found not everybody is like me, that they want to research and, peer-reviewed journal papers and stuff. I like that stuff because I'm always curious who showed up for that pain research. I'm like, how are they interviewing for these kinds of things? And so by turning them into stories, people get to follow the characters and the searching and the healing and the happy endings. So yeah, my next book is called Very Well, like, well, very well, or how are you doing? Very well. So very well, hopefully will be out in the new year. And then there'll be other books to follow on all those different subjects where people are suffering, and hopefully bring them, solutions and hope.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely stick a link to that in the footnotes of this one when it comes out. So that's great. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up for now. Is there anything particular that you'd like to sort of, other than the books that we've mentioned already, anything that you'd like to highlight for listeners to get involved with things that you're doing?
Yeah, I have a Facebook group which has, about 2,500 people in it. When I started that, I think you were one of the first members I invited to come and join me. I had no idea that so many people would introduce the principles. I'm not saying they all listen and all join it all the time, but it's a great opportunity. And I put a lot of free stuff there, posts and videos and inspirational things, and people can ask questions and share their insights. So that's, you can find me on Facebook. And then I've got a website, which is my name, chanastudley.com. So all the latest things I'm doing are there. I'm talking to a couple of people right now about doing some more wellness retreats. So I just spoke to a lady this morning about doing one in near Amsterdam. So be interesting to do that. I did one in America last year. So I really love the idea of traveling and sharing these ideas with people. So so Facebook and website are probably the best way to get hold of me, and the books are on Amazon.
Lovely. Well, I'll make sure links are in for all of those things so that people can find them. Thank you so much for coming to join me today. Great to see you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.